Solve the equation by completing the square. We have 4x squared minus x minus 3 equals 0. So in this particular problem, we need to first determine whether this is in standard form. And it currently is in standard form because everything is on the left side and it's equal to 0. The next thing is can we factor anything out that they have in common of all three terms? And we do not have anything that's in common. So when we're completing the square for this particular question, we need to look at the leading coefficient. Okay, so let's take a look at this. We have 4x squared minus x minus 3, and that's equal to 0. The leading coefficient is a 4, and so the first thing we need to do is divide each term by 4 so that we end up with a leading coefficient of 1. So when we divide everything by 4, we get 4 divided by 4, which leaves us with 1x squared, minus, now keep in mind there's a 1 in front of that, so that becomes minus now 1/4 x. Then that becomes minus 3/4, and that's equal to 0 divided by 4, which is 0. Okay, now in step number 3, we want to then isolate the variable terms on the left side of the equation. So we have x squared minus 1/4 x. We're going to leave a space, and then we're going to add 3/4 to both sides of the equation. So 0 plus 3/4 is going to give us 3/4. Okay, now the next step is now we're going to go ahead and complete the square. So we're going to add an n to this side and then add an n to this side. Now recall that when we complete the square, we know that n is going to equal 1/2 of the value of b, and then we're going to square it. Step number 2, okay, what do we know about the value of b? Well, in the problem, we can see that b ends up being negative 1/4. So therefore, this is going to be 1/2 times negative 1/4, and then we're going to square it. So now in step 3, we get n, which is equal to, now we need to multiply, so 1 times 1 is going to give us 1, and then it's going to be a negative because it's a positive times a negative, and then 2 times 4 is going to give us 8. So we're going to take negative 1/8, and then we're going to square it. Okay, so now when we square it, we're going to get a negative 1/8 times a negative 1/8. Now remember that when you multiply a negative twice, you're going to get a positive. 1 times 1 is 1. 8 times 8 is going to give us 64. So now we know what the value of n is going to be. So now in step number 4, we have x squared minus 1/4 x plus 1/64, and then that is equal to 3/4 plus 1/64. Okay, so now the next step is that we need to factor this perfect square trinomial. Well, the nice thing is that we've already done that. If you see here, this is what we had to multiply twice to get positive 164. So therefore, this is going to become x minus 1/8 squared. And then that's going to equal 3/4 plus 64. Now keep in mind here that we want to find a common denominator between 4 and 64. Well, that is 64. So what do we need to multiply by 4 to get 64? Well, that answer is going to be 16. And so 3 times 16 is going to give us 48. Likewise, 64 times 1 is going to give us 64, so 1 times 1 is 1. So when we add those two together, we're going to get 49/64. Okay. Now in step number 5, now we're going to use the square root property. So we're going to take the square root of the left side of the equation, which is parentheses x minus 1/8 squared. And then that's going to equal, remember that this is plus or minus the square root of 49 divided by the square root of 64. Now in step number 7, when we take the square root of x minus 1/8 squared, we end up with x minus 1/8. And then this is going to be plus or minus, well, what do you have to square to get 49? 7. What do you have to square to get 64? The answer is 8. Okay, now we need to solve for x. And in order to solve for x, we're going to have to add 1/8 to both sides. Now keep in mind we want to put it in front of the plus or minus sign. So for step number 8, we're going to have x, which is equal to 1/8 plus or minus 7/8. So we're going to have two solutions. We have 1/8 minus 7/8, and then we have 1/8 plus 7/8. So when we take 1/8 and subtract 7/8, we get negative 6/8. And then we got to simplify this result. So that becomes negative 3/4. Over here we get 1 plus 7, which is 8, and 8 divided by 8 gives us 1. And so therefore here is our solution. We have negative 3/4 as one of the solutions, and the other one is 1. Let's check our result. So negative 3/4 and 1. So here we put the negative sign, put in the fraction 3/4, and then the other answer is 1. Check our result, and there is our answer.